Okay, so occasionally I come across something that's just frankly really cool, and that just happened with Google. So, for a little bit of background, you could always use an AI tool in automation to go to a website and scrape the data. You probably heard that term before. These actually crawl the website, they pull the information. They're a third party tool, and there's a lot of those out there, and they work pretty well. But when you were building an automation, you had to have an extra tool. You had to basically create an AI and then call up one of these crawlers that would go out to the website and crawl the information. And sometimes websites would actually block you from doing that. So if you're trying to capture the information, there would be a roadblock. Well, Google just did something really cool. And let me go to my desktop and show you what I'm talking about. This is called URL context. And honestly, it's just kind of magical because basically what it does is that by simply putting in a URL of a website, you can actually extract data. You can get the description of images, and it works on not just URLs, but things like PDFs. So it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And this is the area on the developer side. See, it's kind of complicated, but I'm going to show you it's actually really easy in the way that it works. Because basically, what you do is you just send a prompt to the Google Gemini AI engine and you include a URL and say, pull the information. If the information is cached already in Google, because the trillion or so websites that are out there, Google is crawling all of them all the time. If it's cached, it's just going to immediately return. So it's incredibly fast. If it's not, then Google will capture the information. Now, it's not perfect. So if there are nested links or nested sites or things like that, you still are going to need some kind of crawling tool to be able to capture that information. But if the information's there, it makes it incredibly easy to build automation. So let me show you exactly how this would work. This is N8N, and this is like one of my kind of favorite tools here to actually use to build automation. And this looks pretty complicated, and that's because I had so much fun building it, I kind of got carried away. But basically, I'm going to walk you through how this works, and then you're going to see, I think, the utility and how easy it is to use. So I just built a simple chat interface here, and I wanted to get a little fancy. So if I drop a URL in here, it's just going to immediately go over to the agent. If I drop a topic in here, which is not a URL, right? So that's not going to work exactly. I wanted this agent to actually scrape the information from a specific website. Then what I'm going to do is send that over to Perplexity and we're going to do a search. Perplexity is really good at pulling citations. So we're going to take the most important citation from that Perplexity search and we're going to send it to the agent. So I got two choices. I could either send it a URL or I can send it a topic. Either way, what's going to happen is it's going to end up sending a URL over to this AI agent. A couple of tricky things here. One, I've got to make sure that I use Gemini because this is a Google product. It's context URL. So I've got to hit this Gemini model. And for reference, I actually included the 2.5 Flash model because that seems to work the best. So I've got that model hooked up. And then secondly, I've got to enable this context URL via an MCP. And this always sounds like crazy. How hard is that to do? It's so simple. You literally connect this tool, this MCP tool. I connect it to my Google Gemini account. And then I hit this little button over here that says, let the model define everything. And I did that. And I said, let the model define everything. Let the model define everything. So basically, let the AI figure out how to get the information from that particular website. That's going to basically take that information and go into this AI agent. And I said, just take the information from the user and use the Google Context URL MCP tool and summarize the content on this page for the user, interestingly enough, or process the image and describe it because it will also manage JPEGs. So it's kind of multimodal. You can capture images, PDFs, text, whatever you want. And then once you do that, write me a report about what you find. So basically take the information, scrape it, and send it to me. Now, because that's going to come out and be in Markdown language, so it's going to have all the pound signs and all the weird kind of formatting, there's a little tool in N8N called Markdown to HTML. And all I'm going to do is convert it, and then I'm going to send it to me in an email. So we're going to try it out, see if it works. I would say about 90% of the time it's worked. It's been a little bit tricky occasionally because some website URLs are not going to be as easy to do. So let's just see if we can get it to work here. So I'm going to go up here and pull a blog article. Here's one, how to use email marketing to drive newsletter signups. So all I'm going to do is copy the URL. So I'm actually copying the URL here. And go back over here. Let's just start over. And I'm going to paste in nothing but the URL. And I'm going to click go. And you can see it immediately bypass Perplexity because I sent it a URL. Looks like it's messaging the model in Gemini. So it's actually working. This was the little bit of the logic that I put here. So basically what happens here, just to kind of explain, if I had put in a topic like, how do you like promote newsletter signups? But that's not a URL. It would have actually sent it down to Perplexity to do some research on that topic, and it would have pulled out the most common URL that people are citing, and it would have sent that back through the model. It's done. So let's just kind of see what it found. We'll go to the agent, and it says, yep, here it is, the Abimatic AI blog post, how to use email marketing to drive newsletter signups, highlights the business that businesses often overlook the potential of their existing email marketing efforts. So we'll look at the later about what the output, but that one looked like it worked. That's actually pretty cool. So next, let's go to another one. Now, this is MD Anderson, and this is a PDF a workflow. And look at this, pretty complicated workflow, right? On abnormal uterine bleeding. So what I'm going to do here, so I'm going to copy this URL again. I'm going to go back over here. Now, this time, this is a PDF. So let's just kind of see what happens if I put a PDF through here. And great, bypass Perplexity, which is what we want. And now in time, I'm not really sure it worked because, to be honest with you, it didn't seem to do much. Let's go back up here and see what it said. It said it can't directly access the provided URL. Okay. So one thing we're going to try here, and this has worked a couple times, may not work here since we're doing a video, but I'm going to just do it again and see if we can actually get it to work. And I would say, yeah, this time it's working. And that's kind of what I found is that I think it depends a little bit on what Google has cached. So if there's some cached information about this PDF or this website, then it tends to be very predictable and it works. If it actually has to go do its scraping thing, which Google is scraping, then I think that it may kind of fail. So you may have to kind of play around with it. You may have to run it a couple of times. I'm sure we could build a fail safe in here that if it didn't work, it could retry a couple of times to see if we could get it to work. But I'm not going to take the time to do that because we're just doing a demo. So let's go up to the agent and let's just see kind of what it found. Yep, here's a summary of the MD Anderson clinical algorithm for the management of abnormal uterine bleeding in premenopausal women. Document provides a detailed step-by-step flowchart for physicians to diagnose and manage abnormal uterine bleeding in women. So, wow. So now that was a PDF. So that's actually really cool. Let's do one more. And this time I thought I would try an image. This is something I've never seen, even on most of the crawling tools that are out there. I don't crawl images very well. So this is an image. It looks like a picture of Yosemite. So all I did basically was open up this image and you just right click, right? And you say open image in a new tab. And I'm opening the image here. So this is actually the URL to the specific image. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to copy that URL just like that. We're going to go back over to N8N and let's restart it. We're going to try it again. Let's see how it does on this JPEG. Well, it bypassed Perplexity, which is really good. And it didn't work. Okay. It's like I told you. So we're going to see if we can try it again, see if we can get this one to work. And I would say on images, kind of the same thing as PDFs. Looks like it didn't really work that time either. I'll give it one more try, and then we're just going to kind of try something else. And I don't think that's working. So if we pull it up, we're going to see I'm sorry, I cannot directly process the image from a URL or summarize content. Now, what's crazy is that I tested that image before we did this video and it worked, right? So I know it does work, but I would say it can be a little bit cranky about it. And again, I don't really understand why, other than I think there's probably a little bit of caching. Let's try one more thing here. It's going to say something like, I'm just going to say something like, how do you make brewed coffee? Okay. But this time you notice I didn't put a URL, so it's going out to Perplexity. We're going to see if this one works or if I'm on a run here. And this time it did. So it's actually did a Perplexity search on how to make brewed coffee. It pulled out the URL and then it sent it to the agent. So here I didn't start with the URL. I started with an actual topic. And then I used Perplexity to kind of help me find the most topical URL to actually search. And it looks like it's working. So we'll give it a second here. And then I'm going to show you the outputs from these and hopefully they all worked. So what's happening, just so you know, is that it's interpreting the URL, sending it out and getting the information, bringing it back to the agent. Then the agent is writing a summary. That's why it's actually doing 2 calls here to this chat model here. And it looks like it works. Let's pull it back up. and it said it couldn't find it. So maybe it couldn't find anything there either. My gut feeling is it ran it accidentally a second time, and maybe we actually did get a response. So let's go over to my email and let's just see what's in my email. So this is the email. And so here's that first one. So here's the blog post that was emailed to me. So you can see here's the key strategies, transactional emails, employee emails. Pretty good. This is the one, remember, that it couldn't find. And then here we finally got it to work. So this is the PDF summary. So here's a summary of the MD Anderson Cancer Center's clinical algorithm for the management of abnormal uterine bleeding in premenopausal women, which is exactly the document that we were examining. So this isn't AI using its brain or prior training to create this output. It's actually pulling the output from that PDF, which is very, very amazing. Now, keep in mind, you would not want to use this for like clinical use because it is an AI summary of a document. So there could theoretically be some hallucination. We'd be a little careful there. So that one worked. And look at that's pretty comprehensive. This was the image. Remember, we could never get it to work. And then finally, this is the one on coffee brewing methods, a comprehensive guide. And this is actually, yeah, pretty good. Look at all that stuff that it pulled. So it did actually work. So I hope you find this kind of as enjoyable as I have to use because I think the use cases are crazy good. Building a simple application now, you just need the URL. You don't need to build any kind of fancy crawler or scraper to be able to figure that out. If you need me to walk you through this, then reach out to me or direct message me. And if I can help you in any way, let me know. But I hope you enjoyed it.